Whoa, hello, welcome back, everybody. Excuse me, I have my webcam in a different position, so I'm trying to get everything back on track here. Well, anyway, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. So, it's been kind of an interesting week, and a lot of stuff has come out just in the past couple days, which is kind of funny because it was kind of a terrible day of work yesterday. So I'm finally back. So I'm finally like, okay, finally some fun stuff to talk about. Well, then the fun stuff turned out to be actually not so fun, unfortunately. Well, actually, one thing is going to be pretty fun. The other one, not so much. So, let's just get right into it. So there has been an interesting development and a little bit of background. Want to be very clear. It is going to be required to explain this. So obviously, in the subtitle of this stream, it's a lot of it deals with Razorfist. Now, full disclosure, I have been a fan of Razorfist for maybe 5 years, a long time. It's been probably longer than that. No, I've been a fan of Razorfist for a little bit. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but you know his comedy, his comedic timing, and his use of languages. I don't know. It works with me, and I really enjoy it. And I've learned a lot actually from a lot of his stuff. He's probably better researched than half the idiots the idiots in this space. Just being really honest. Let me turn this off. It looks weird. So, and I was kind of taken aback because earlier this year, whenever the Goonergate bullcrap came up, where basically it was a bunch of idiots, some people saying, hey, maybe we don't necessarily need tits and ass in a video game all the time in order to gain viewers, and some people were completely okay with it. No problem. And hey Selena, what's up? Which is honestly, I don't really have a position either way. I think I'm completely okay with complete creativity, with developers doing whatever the hell they want, and consumers deciding whether or not to buy it. But you had a bunch of people making it. We had the wrong people making those arguments, a bunch of the wrong people butting heads with each other, and it just was a complete mess. And I hated watching it because there was a lot of infighting, a lot of bad faith arguments, and a lot of obfuscation of what people's actual points were. So there were a lot of people who were trying to say there were some people on the what they call Gooner games, like the ones who have some tits and ass in a game, like Stellar Blade or what's that other one, First Descendant, and there were some people who were late. They're very suggestive. The women in there are the women in the main characters in those games are very rather scantily clad, and they're there to be eye candy. I don't have a problem with it. I don't care. I like the fact that it exists simply because the leftoid idiots are not having the complete control over the gaming industry as they once did. And I actually was appreciative of that. That's where I was coming from. And I don't care. Play what you want, make what you want. I don't give a crap either way. And there were some people who were trying to call that porn. Well, people are idiots. And there are some people there are also some people calling that porn, and then saying that that should not exist and there should be something to keep that hidden. Well, that's dumb. And then there are some people in between, like Razorfist, who are asking, you know what? Maybe we don't necessarily. Maybe the gaming industry shouldn't need that in order to sell their games. Not advocating for censorship at all. Hey, Sean, Third Railfi, welcome. That's yeah, I'm a small law. What did he say? From a small law firm in central Minnesota, even though he doesn't have the Midwestern accent. Welcome, everybody. Continuing on. So, and again, there was a lot to keep track of in those weeks, especially with Goonergate, and it wasn't pleasant. It really was not pleasant to have to watch. There were some people who actually were trying to have a legitimate conversation about this, because I think that was kind of something that I think we kind of need to discuss. What is the role of sexuality in video games? Same thing as any artistic endeavor. Let's be perfectly honest. I'm okay with having these discussions. I'm not okay with unilaterally saying, shut it all down because I am a moral authority. Now, I'm old enough to remember the moral majority of the 90s. And there was a lot of people who were arguing from trying to avoid the satanic panic of the 80s. And I get that. I completely understand that. And, but it just made me really frustrated because there was a lot of interesting nuance and good conversation that could have been happening that wasn't happening because the wrong people were making the argument. And Razorfist was one of them. I actually am completely okay with the original point he was trying to make. Unfortunately, he pissed off the idiots. He pissed off the gooners. He pissed off the degenerates who were absolutely, and let's be very clear, on the Goonergate side, there were plenty of people. In fact, I would even say make up the majority of them who were just being rabid animals whose main food source was being taken away. You know, they were just responding with such viciousness and it just a disproportionate viciousness. The thing about Razorfist is he is not the kind of guy to have a measured response to something like this. Now, he will at first, but you push him far enough, he gets annoyed, he lashes out. I've known it for years. It's just kind of something that he does. So I was used to it. So obviously, so he did piss off a lot of people. Granted, he did not handle that situation very well. But, you know, to be fair, a lot of people were attributing arguments to him that he never made. Well, the biggest one that was actually hilarious is watching people try to say that Razorfist was trying to claim censorship was the way to go. Well, if you've known Razorfist at all, you know that'd be the last thing he would suggest. You don't advocate for top-down censorship of media. That'd be the last thing that he would suggest. He hates the state just as much as I do. That's where a lot of my hatred from the state comes from, because thanks to him, he's covered a lot of it and reminded us exactly why we should hate government and media more. And so, of course, he didn't respond very well. He came out on side scrollers and wasn't responding very well to that either. Wasn't being very kind about it either. And, you know, again, I don't really blame him, but he was responding to some people making some very bad faith accusations. Well, that's where a lot of stuff came out. Apparently, there have been some accusations revolving around him for a couple of years. One of them involving some kind of video of him jerking off on a now defunct porn website and grooming an underage girl. Pretty serious accusation of the latter. The former, who cares? You can't prove. I mean, come on, it's a defunct website. What are you going to do? But that's a pretty serious accusation. Apparently, that's been going around for quite some time. So he released, but it only came out, but a lot of it resurfaced due to Gamergate, Goonergate. People basically, instead of making a legitimate argument, were trying to say, well, you're a hypocrite because you groomed a little girl. Like, that's stupid. That's a pretty serious accusation. It's really serious. What's up, Arrow? Well, greetings to Arrow. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Dad. I don't like my dad shirt I wore in Vegas. I look like Dennis Nedry. What was I saying? Yeah, and so a lot of people were bringing that up to throw back in his face, because I'm sorry, that's what a lot of the gooners were doing, is they were making bad faith accusations towards people in order to defend their exact position. I have no patience for that crap. Either argue the point or don't argue the point. Do not bring someone's personal life into this unless it actually has something legitimately to do with the subject at hand. All that to say, one of them was Razorfist allegedly grooming a girl and entering into a relationship with her whenever she turned 18. And that was a big one. It's been going around for a little bit, probably around 9 years or so, at least. Actually, no, I don't know the exact timeline. So he came out with a video yesterday, which I will admit the timing is interesting, because apparently, according to him, he recorded this in March and then just released it yesterday. Today is May 1st. So he released it on April 30th, last of the month. And he was addressing all of these accusations against him, specifically the one with grooming and the one with any kind of he was being accused of also emotional abuse or controlling behavior, stuff like that. And I remember specifically watching people like Kina Casino and Smash JT were covering it. Now, the thing about Smash JT, his coverage of that was weird because he and Razorfist were going at it because of Goonergate. And Smash JT I'm sorry, I respect his fight against Alyssa Mercante, which we'll get to that in a second. I respect his fight. However, the way that he was arguing, the way that both of them were arguing over Goonergate was weird. And let's be honest, Smash JT is a drama farmer. So are Kino Casino. And I love them both. I love both channels. I watch both channels. I watch Kino Casino more because they're funnier. especially with my namesake Nick Rekieta. Every time they cover a Nick Rekieta video, Nick Rekieta happening, I'm there because I love it. I love watching the train wreck because obviously the resemblance is uncanny. I want to see how my other half is doing, but they're funny. I like watching them. Now Razorfist is one of those people. He lashes out, he gets angry, and sometimes for good reason. And this is kind of one of them. When you have someone accusing you of grooming an underage girl, that's pretty serious. So he came out, and you can go watch the video. Let me know and you can go watch the video. Let me know what you think. I think his defense actually sounds pretty solid because, according to him, the lady that was the girl that was accusing him of grooming her while she was underage, it turns out that she is actually kind of a psycho. She definitely sounds like it. The stuff that he released about her, she sounds like an absolute nut job. And he was smart to cite the Johnny Depp trial as an example, because apparently this girl was also a bipolar disorder and was off and on, she according to him, emotionally and mentally and physically abusing him as well. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. And especially when it comes to especially when it comes to stuff like this, when it comes to relationships, we're not always going to get the entire story. We're going to get both sides. But what I found interesting is that there was a renewed push from his accuser. Well, not accuser, but the lady that the people tracked down and asked her to make a statement rather recently. And she came out right around Goonergate to, if I'm getting the timeline right. If I'm not, feel free to correct me. But it definitely seemed like all of this was coming out just around Goonergate just to shut him up, which I think was really unfair. It's kind of a dirty thing. And Smash JT was covering it in a little bit more of a journalistic approach, but Kino Casino went, I think, way too far. I think they went way too far. They were reveling in it. They weren't making any accusations specifically. They were basically reading off of his Razorfist Kiwi Farms thread, which Razorfist himself pointed out. There's a disclaimer on the Kiwi Farms site that says this isn't to be taken as fact. This is also for fun. This isn't to be taken necessarily as complete fact. This is all for fun, for satire. It's an entertainment website. Fair point. So really, very little on there would have been verified. Very little on there would have been what is necessarily cannot legally be treated as fact. But a lot of people like Kino Casino and Smash GT were all in on it. They drew all of their data from it, and they wanted very much to use it against him. Now, again, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if any of it's true. If I'm proven wrong a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, fine. Perfectly fine. I will admit it because I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot. I will 100% admit that I was wrong. But you know what? So what? I can have an opinion and be wrong about it later. That's okay. I don't think I'm defending a groomer. I really don't think I am. Because when I was listening to Kino Casino, just something was bothering me. Just the way that even people like in this circle here they were very happy for this to be true. Very happy for this to be true. And that felt gross to me. That felt really gross to me. To have so many people kind of revel in this, like, guys, if this is real, if this is really an underage girl, like she's 17 and he waited till she was 18 to start dating him, that's weird that you're reveling in this. That's weird that you're using it as a gotcha. That's weird that you're so happy to lob that against him. I'm not okay with that. It's especially over video games. Let's be perfectly honest. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for the video games. We weren't talking about Goonergate, none of this would have come up. And that bothered me. And it never sat right with me. Now, granted, Kino Casino is hilarious. I love it when they go all in on, my likeness, my body double over in Minnesota. But that seemed like it was too far. It just seems too far. Because sometimes Kino Casino especially will just watch a video that someone's doing and EFAP it. That's all they have to do. They just comment on it. But this was different. It just seemed different, at least to me. And according to Razorfist, the timeline doesn't work out because apparently the time when his accuser was supposed to be accuser, I don't even know if I call her that. He calls her accuser, so I'm going to say that. But when the accuser was supposedly underage was whenever they were supposed to start dating, he was already in a relationship with someone else for about 3 years. And that was, and again, I don't know if there's some overlap there. I hope not. Um, who knows? But again, the timeline doesn't really work out because again, when she was supposedly under 18 was when he was already under 18 during the time when she turned 18 and was supposed to be dating him was when he was already in a relationship with someone else. And there could have been text grooming. I don't know. I don't think, I don't know. It just seems weird to me. I mean, there are some people you look at, you're like, oh yeah, exactly. That absolutely happened. But there are some people you look at, you're like, that sounds a little. Sometimes your gut just tells you maybe something's weird, and I don't know. I could be proven completely wrong. But Razorfist was presenting screenshots of text messages, was showing some clipped audio, which y'all, let's be perfectly honest. The kind of things that I was hearing from this woman, from his accuser, is kind of insane because I think all of us have a crazy ex. And specifically, I had an ex that was, in the midst of her personal problems, was also emotionally abusing me and making things and belittling me, disrespecting me, making things very difficult. So I'm a little bit more, I'm way more, what's the word I'm looking for? I am far more amenable to his perspective because the kind of crap that apparently this lady was saying to him and messaging him is unhinged. It was really unhinged. I mean, nothing. I mean, to my ex's credit, not even in her most degenerate and even in her most degenerate mindset would she ever say half the crap that she did, the crap that this lady was saying. The kind of things that she was joking about going to the cops and making accusations against making accusations against him, and she'd be immediately believed. Like, no one has ever said that to me, and I don't think anybody on planet Earth, at least anybody who has not encountered a psychopath, would have heard that kind of thing. And I know many people in my circle, specifically my immediate circle, have had exes like that are absolute psychopaths and who have said crap like that before. And he's got screenshots. He's got audio files. Now, granted, they're clipped there, but it seems to me like he's not putting all of his cards on the table. He's reserving some things for if a defamation suit needs to be drawn. Maybe he's drawing maybe he's doing a defamation suit against the accuser. I don't know. We'll see. The timing of this is interesting. I'm not going to say strange. I'm not going to say weird because I don't know. The timing of it is actually rather interesting. I don't know why he decided to say this now because the Goonergate thing has pretty much all but died off. I don't know why he decided to I don't know why he decided to release everything now. Not release everything, but I don't know why he decided to do this now. And time will tell. Obviously, time will tell. We don't know all the details. And frankly, all the details are none of our business, none of my business either. Now, somewhere down the line, more information may come out, and I'm certainly not going to say that. I certainly hope that my worst fears are indeed not confirmed. I certainly hope that he is who he has said he is the whole time. I will continue to have faith in that process, and who knows? All I know is that as far as I'm concerned, watching his whole video, watching his whole defense, it sounds pretty compelling to me. Now, you may not like Razorfist. That's completely okay. There are some times I'm like, should you have done that? I don't know if you should have said that. I'm a fan of his, obviously. There are times when he speaks when he shouldn't, and that's fine. He's a human being. I'm a human being. It's not for me to say. But I will say, time is going to tell what is truth and what is not. You can go back and watch his whole 18-minute video. I'm not going to EFAP it here. It's not for me. It's not for me to do. But, I think he definitely probably has a case for defamation, probably has a case for slander, libel. I don't know. Maybe that's what he's doing. I'm not sure. But because I'm no lawyer, I just look like one on TV. All right. So let's move on. So finally some good news. Some good news. And even though the Spurgs on Twitter are having an absolute conniption fit over this, I cannot be helped but just be tickled pink here. So let's read this. Polygon sold to Valnet and hit with mass layoffs. And they've done some updates, and I don't really know how relevant they are because I don't care. One of the biggest gaming sites around was just blown up by Ethan Gach. Now this is from Kotaku. Ugh. Speaking of things that'll make you puke. So Kotaku is by the way the current former employee. The former employer of Alyssa Mercante. So if you don't know who she is, then keep it that way, please, for your own stomach. But you can already this guy is just couching this in all sorts of disaster speak. And let's read. Published 8 hours ago, updated 2 hours ago. The video game website Polygon has been sold to Click Farm powerhouse Valnet, and much of its masthead has been laid off. Kotaku has learned. Good. Bye. The sale was subsequently announced in a press release. Multiple staff members have posted online about losing their jobs or about colleagues now being out of work. Good. Go away. Bye. We do not want you around anymore. Please turn tricks under a bridge to make a living, because that's all you deserve. Quote, I am no longer with Polygon. If you're hiring, please consider the many talented writers and editors on the market. All 2 of them? Posted Polygon co-founder. Oh, not even the co-founders. Not even the co-founders survived. And EIC Chris Planty, whatever. Every one of them deserves a spot on your staff. I won't be talking more about the sale because I wasn't involved. Going to hang out with my kid, taking wins where I can. Well, I mean, your kid has you as a father, mother. I don't know. Chris, could be either one. The sale was confirmed in a press release, which did not mention the layoffs. The price of the deal was not disclosed. Sources tell Kotaku that deputy editor Maddie Myers and games editor Zoe Hanna are among those that remain at Polygon. Executive editor Chelsea Stark said the layoffs includes over 20 staff. Vox Media did not immediately respond for a request for comment. Quote, I'll say more later, but I no longer have a job, unquote, shared senior reporter Nicole Carpenter. Quote, I'm looking for work, as are so many of my amazing colleagues. I have lots of ideas and things I'd like to write. I'm really in shock, unquote. You know, you could just have written them on your website. Maybe it would have survived. I had a great time working at Polygon, posted senior writer Michael McWhirter. Please let me know if you have any cool job openings. Founded in 2012 under Vox Media, the site quickly established itself as one of the premier outlets for original reviews, reporting, and cultural analysis. Basically, if your game features a not white protagonist developed by a non-white staff, then you immediately get high marks. To speak perfectly honest. Polygon's coverage of video games, movies, TV, comics, and board games are some of the best around. Okay, come on. If you're gonna jerk someone off, at least pay him for it. Come on, Kotaku, get real. While its forward-looking design sensibility helped elevate the way its stories are presented and told online. Come on, bro. They're going bankrupt. They're not gonna sleep with you, dude. Chill. Continues, Valnet is based in Montreal and operates Screen Rant, Game Rant, comic book resources, and other mass aggregators. Oh my god. So I didn't read this part. I'm reading this completely blind. So the same people who run Screen Rant, who were trying to say that Lord of the Rings was outdated, who said that Chris Pratt was somehow problematic because he attended church. Oh my god. So they now on Polygon. They just exchanged the scorpion for the centipede. I don't know if that works. But basically they exchange one poison frog for another. Like it's not gonna get any better. But I mean, yeah, they'll be able to conglomerate it easier. And that's the thing. It's all just they're not gonna be citing, like, Polygon is not gonna be used as another just rumor mill for Screen Rant and Game Rant and all that. And comic book resources. Ugh. The only thing, there's nothing remotely related to comic books in that site. The company is run by Hassan Youssef. I'm not going to comment on that. Who got his start in digital media with online board websites. Polygon, you've fallen so far. You're literally owned by a board broker. Oh, this is the state of modern gaming media. Oh my God. We went from Nintendo Power and Game Informer to being owned by a porn broker. This is great. The addition of Polygon not only strengthens our editorial muscle, oh, bad choice of words, porn broker, but also amplifies our ability to deliver unmatched value, my God, to both audiences and advertisers. Unmatched value, you're going to be the exact same thing as Screen Rant. Idiots. User said in a press release today. In a report earlier this year by The Wrap, many former contributors accused Valnet's current media holdings of being exploitative content mills. I mean, yeah, have you seen Kotaku and Kotaku? Have you seen your publication? That's exactly what you are. You're exploitative content. You were the ones who were first in line to make Gamergate a thing. Degenerate pieces of garbage. In journalism, there are really bad jobs, yeah, like yours. And then there's a place like Valnet. Well, at least Valnet actually generates some content, seemingly, because for God knows why, Screen Rant is still alive. A former Collider contributor told The Wrap, "It's one of the worst places I've ever worked. It's probably one of the worst journalism publications I've ever seen." Well, okay, again, pot, kettle, here, ha, you're black, whatever. That's going to get clipped, I know it is, but I don't care. Valnet responded to the investigation by suing The Wrap for libel, claiming the reporting was full of errors and had caused the company's founder tremendous emotional distress, affecting, among other things, his mood, temperament, and ability to sleep. Learn to code, bro. Let's see. Does it say anything about how that worked? The Vox Media Union blasted the sale and layoffs, which occurred as its bargains over its next contract. Arguably, even more demoralizing is Vox Media's decision to sell a lot of games website to a company known for alleged exploitative conditions and for develop. So they want to be paid and treated well for writing, for writing such a for their journalistic, to write like this awful exploitative journalistic bullcrap. You know what? There's really nothing else to comment on here. It's just good riddance. Good riddance, Polygon, and good riddance to all of the people that are losing their jobs at freaking Polygon. Because those are the same kind of people who are more than willing to look at someone like me, knowing nothing about me, to all these. If I were to work for a game company, or if my likeness was to be Nick Recada's likeness, but I'll be okay with that. We're still to be used in a video game. All they would assume by me is that I am somehow a problem with the gaming industry by the fact that I'm white, straight, and male. And don't you deny it. Everybody in these rags, from Kotaku to PC Gamer, from Comic Book Resources to Polygon to Screen Rant, everybody has the same exact ideas and viewpoint and focus. And I wish I could find it, but there was actually an article here, and I didn't save it. I should have. That was stupid of me. I'll do it better. I'll do better, Senator, next time. But I saw an article, presumably from Polygon, decrying the fact that a game studio is made up of 30 white dudes, and I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the new 33 game that came out, calling into question their place in the world, in the world of gaming developers, and whether or not they deserve all of this. Which, by the way, this I wish I could remember the title. I haven't played it. I know nothing about it. But it's this new game that's kind of sweeping everybody up, and apparently it's really, really good. Destination 33, Platform 33. It's 33 is in the title, so I'm just going to call it 33. It's getting rave reviews. A lot of people are playing it. A lot of people are picking it up, and most importantly, word of mouth is off the charts. And apparently, it's a very emotionally compelling, fulfilling story. I'm all about that. I'm definitely going to be finding that and checking it out, or at least going to look at some reviews, or at least wait until some time passes, and then I can buy it at a discount, because that's what I always do. New games, wait 4 or 5 months and then play them. All the bugs will be worked out by then. But it was calling into question whether or not that game deserves any accolades, any of its praise, because it doesn't have a diverse team. It doesn't have diverse characters. They're basically all white straight people, and definitely all white males in that development team. If it's the same one I'm thinking of, because all I saw was the headline. All I saw was a clip, like a screenshot. I didn't actually go into the website and see it. This could be all fake, actually. I don't know, but I can't help but it's just like, that's the state of gaming journalism right there. Remember, these are also the people who were slaves of Anita Sarkeesian for a number of years. These are also, I mean, Kotaku is one of them. It was one of the, is hired Alyssa Mercante and kept her around forever, defended her for God knows what reason. Easily one of the most caustic, toxic, most evil, disgusting, degenerate, scum-sucking people on the planet. And by the way, I noticed I mentioned it because suing Smash JT for repeating things to her that she has said. This is the kind of person that she is. And she tried to have her little Frost moment by saying, the industry is diverse, so, suck on that, mother effers. And it's like, you degenerate piece of garbage. It's like, that's who these companies hire. If you just so happen to graduate from USC or UCLA and you have a journalism degree, which, by the way, any woman can get now, because it does not require all that much intelligence, to be perfectly honest. If you are somehow of a non-straight blue hair out there in the West Coast, you can easily get a journalism degree for a song. And if you can't get into CNN or MSNBC or ABC or any of these major news publications, which, by the way, are dinosaurs, then all of a sudden maybe you can write for video games and how everything is sexist, racist, bigoted, and homophobic, and all you have to provide is repeat what your echo chamber told you for 4 years back on the West Coast. And I cannot feel less sorry for people like this. But I'm just gonna tell you what you told people like me all during COVID, the 2020 years. Learn to code. So suck on that, degenerate pieces of garbage. So happy you're all gonna be turning tricks under a bridge to survive. I have no patience for you anymore. What's up, Arrow? What have you been out? Yep, I completely agree, Arrow. F him, you piece of crap. So now that we got that out of the way, let's read some books. So we are getting close to the end of this section of the book, and we are about a few more pages. So if I may, oh wow, we got a few more pages in this section. So we're not even past chapter 1 yet, but we're getting there. So as a reminder, we are reading Jeff Shiraz' To the Last Man. It's a novel of World War I, and our intrepid hero, Greenie, has just arrived in the front. I believe he's in the Ardennes. And he is, no, he's not. He's in Holland. I don't remember where he is. France somewhere. He's a British trooper. And he just was informed after his first night arriving at the front lines at the trench, after finishing his first watch, he is now going over the top, which means he and his entire unit are going to leave the trenches and attack the German line. Let me get some water here. No, these are not mercury cubes. These are stainless steel. You put them in the fridge. I think you put them in the freezer, and it's reusable ice cubes. They're okay. they at least get room temperature water cool enough to, condensate. Is the word? Okay. We read the last sentence. On the line for the whole day, and by God, you will share the privilege of going over the top. He completed 3 shifts on the parapet, had seen nothing, heard no sounds but the hard pounding in his chest. He had 2 more hours of rest before the artillery would begin. Lay in his dugout, staring sleeplessly into the black dirt above him. Then the order came. Graves himself coming for them, the young lieutenant wearing his own helmet, carrying a rifle. It was the first time he realized that the lieutenant was, after all, a soldier just like the rest of them. The lessons of Blighty had come back. Of course, lieutenants lead their men into the fight. They moved through the trench, past more rows of sandbags, the darkness above them matched by the black silence of the men. He followed the man in front of him, his feet bouncing on duckboards, the routine so familiar now. Then they were halted, and he could feel the presence of more men. The trench thick with smells and sounds, belts and bayonets, rifles and Mills bombs, each man preparing for what was to come. He had thought Duke was close to him, wasn't sure now, could see no faces, only the dark shapes. A whisper passed down the line. Muddy your bayonets, muddy your helmets. He heard the sound of metal, then men digging into the trench wall. Another lesson from Blighty. Bayonets reflect light. If your helmet has no cloth covering, it will shine as well. A deadly beacon for an enemy rifleman. He reached out, felt for the side of the trench, grabbed a handful of soft dirt, ran it along his bayonet, then put a hand flat on his helmet, the thin, shredded canvas barely holding. He grabbed another handful, spread it out on his helmet. He had done this at Blighty, drill after drill, the lessons taught day after day. The shrapnel-proof helmet, at first in modern times, essential in modern combat, and the bitter sarcasm of the sergeants. Shrapnel-proof unless it's actually hit by a piece of shrapnel. Another hard whisper. Fix bayonets! He felt for the muzzle of his rifle, his hands shaking, fingers not working, stiff and cold. He rattled the bayonet into place, gave a hard tug, held the rifle straight up in front of him, tight against his chest, the bayonet pointing skyward. No accidents in the trenches. There was a long, silent moment, and then a hard clap of thunder rolled into the trench, startling them all, followed by a great, long roar, unbroken, the ground shaking beneath him. He put a hand out, felt himself rocking, unsteady, the roar louder, deafening, filling his brain, his bones. He dropped down to his knees, pulled his head low into his shoulders, the top of his helmet tight against the rifle. Excuse me. He wanted to look up. Had heard you could see the artillery shells as they passed over. Streaks of red and white light whistling overhead, but the roar was pressing him down, curling him into one tight, hard ball. After long minutes, the sounds had a rhythm, his mind absorbing the noise, growing used to it. His knees ached, his feet crushed into his boots, his hands throbbed, gripping his rifle, but he was held tight in the grasp of the shelling. No movement, no relief. His mind began to wander out into the darkness. What was happening over there beyond the wire? He realized now that there were no explosions around them. Of course, the artillery is all ours. They're not firing back, at least not at us, not here. Does that mean we're winning? He was deathly curious, wondered if anyone was up on the parapets. If anyone could see the impact of the shelling on the enemy lines. Fritz, Heine, the Boche. He had never seen a German. Wondered if he would see one now, or, if the lieutenant was right, the artillery would do the work, sweeping away any opposition. If that's true, why are we doing this? Fighting the war with cannon. No one has to use the bayonet. The thought froze him. Another lesson from Blighty. Cold steel to the enemy's throat. A line of recruits, running wildly, screaming and cursing and driving bayonets into straw dummies. It had been unreal then, a game. Men with brave talk, all the stuff of bad novels. Englishmen and savages, redcoats, securing the glory of the empire. Instructors, so matter of fact. Insert your bayonet firmly into the enemy, then withdraw. If the bayonet will come out, fire your rifle. The recoil will remove it. Insert. My God, please let them be gone. The great roar began to quiet, then hushed, deafening silence, and around him a groan rose up from the huddled men. Up to the ladders! There were no whispers now, voices rising, the officers moving quickly around the men, lifting them up, prodding them forward, words of encouragement. He straightened himself up, worked the pain out of his legs, felt his gut twist into a hot swirl. The men began to move, shuffling slowly, and now, from somewhere out beyond the trench, a new sound, high and shrill, familiar this time. It was a whistle. Up! Over the top! Give them hell! The men kept moving, and now he was climbing short steps, rungs of a narrow ladder. He reached the top, stepped through a row of sandbags, followed the man in front of him, men pushing him from behind. He was surprised that he could see low gray shadows, the first light of a misty dawn. He was on flat ground now, thick and wet. He could see the shadows of men spread all along in front of the trenches. There were more whistles, and somewhere down the line close by, a shout. Go! Advance! The men were moving in one wave, and he moved with them, blindly, probing with his boots, the ground suddenly falling away, his boots filling with water. He fought through it, could see he was in a small shell hole, climbed up the other side, stared ahead, the rifle pointing out, the bayonet leading the way. Shouts flew all along the line, meaningless words, some men swarming past him, some falling in the mud, rising again, the wave unbroken. His legs carried him with automatic rhythm, his boots pulling him into the mud and then out again. In front of him, men were slowing, gathering at pre-cut gaps, slowly gathering into the pulling him into the mud, then out again. In front of him, men were slowing, gathering pre-cut gaps in their own wire, men filing through quickly. He was carried along with them, streams of men, guided through narrow paths. Now they were in the open again, broken, hilly ground, shell holes old and new, churned up dirt, bursts of awful smell gagging him. He moved faster, Clean air, but the shells returned, hard and thick, would not go away. He pushed himself forward. Could see now huge shadows, great fat mounds of barbed wire. There was no order to the coils, wire piled on wire, and he felt a hard tug on his leg, a piece of wire grabbing him. He pulled free, his pants torn, tried to see down in front of him, and thought, there is no path. This is German wire. Men were gathering again, but there were no guides, no easy way through. Men were probing, some stepping high, trying to find a way, and he could see that the barbed wire was a shattered heap, piled high around shell holes. He stopped as the men around him stopped, some men pulling at the wire in their clothes. He could hear words close by, a man giving orders, an officer waving his arms, shouting into the face of another man. Go to the wireless station. The barbed wire is uncut. The bloody guns didn't destroy it, just blew it to hell, scattered all over the damn place. We'll have to pick our way through. Tell the artillery to be ready in support. This will take some time. Men were moving all along the mounds of wire, some pushing into gaps in the great fat coils, then retreating, their paths closed. He followed one man into a gap. The ground an uneven mound of mud and wire. The man shouting, This way, I found an opening! He could see dark, flat ground beyond the wire, a clear area, men now gathering behind him, moving as he moved. A mass of soldiers walking, some running, toward one narrow place in the line. He felt his chest heaving, slipped down into a shell hole, his ankle twisting, more water in his boots. He pulled himself up. The wire behind him could see that the way was clear now, and he ran again. Wide stretch of ground, slowed, thought, how much farther? Few were running now, the lines of men drawing closer. The massed power now ready to strike, all eyes searching, trying to see the German works. He glanced up at the starless sky. The darkness still disguised the land. Saw something move far out in front of him. Reflection of metal. A light. Cigarette, perhaps. One man's deadly mistake. Others had seen it as well, and men began to shout. This way! He ran slowly, deliberately looking again for the flicker of light. Didn't have to look back. Could feel the strength behind him, pushing on towards the enemy. There was nothing of Blighty in this. No lesson from bitter sergeants. No way to train a man to feel the energy that drove him forward, raw and savage. He searched the ground in front of him, thought, where? It must be close. He heard a dull pop, then another. Ignored the sounds, and suddenly the sky exploded into bright light, bursting rockets, hissing torches floating slowly to the ground. All along the line, bright lights hovered overhead, some finding the ground, spewing up sparks and flame, the wave of men silhouetted in perfect detail. There was a new sound now, flickers of light ahead of him, like a long, thin row of sparks. The sounds grew, rolling over him, the clatter and rattle of rifle fire, and another new sound, strangely familiar, a flash of memory, a child holding a piece of wood against the turning spokes of a wagon wheel. But the memory is shattered by the flashes of light and the cries of men around him. Machine guns. The air around him was alive. Men falling, punched and jerked down, some tumbling forward, others twisted and turned. Behind him, the opening in the barbed wire was gone, seeming to close, disappear behind all of them. He looked for an officer, someone in command, someone to tell him what to do. Men were spread on the ground around him, others firing their rifles, then cut down as well. He searched the ground for a shell hole, but the ground was flat and undisturbed, and he saw the face of a sergeant cower. The man that they would all remember, the man who had called him a soldier. He turned toward the machine guns, held the bayonet high, and moved forward. The officer studied the map, teacups spread on the table. Questions were asked and answered, an aide standing ready with a pointer. There were pins on the map, blue and red, undulating rows and two parallel lines. The room was busy, staff officers moving in and out, reports read, orders dictated to aides who wrote quickly on pads of paper. One man, a colonel, studied the pins, heard words of encouragement from the others, shared their smiles. He said something to an orderly, who obeyed quickly, took his tea away, brought him a fresh cup. Now more aides appeared, more dispatches, and the officers read each one. Much talk, the smiles giving way to concern, and then the smiles were gone. The room was quiet now, and the colonel stared at the map for a long moment, reached out across the wide table, pulled a blue pen out of the map, and tossed it aside. Outside, the reporters held their daily vigil, newspapermen, waiting for the official posting of the day's events. Something to send home to readers, already weary of bad news. An aide appeared, tacked a paper to a board, the reporters gathering, expectant, then disappointed. The paper read, Minor activity along the Ypres front. Engagements of no importance. So that's the end of Officer Greenie. Sucks, don't it? Kind of sucks. Not a fun place. Not a fun chapter. But it's basically how it worked back then. You know, a whole brigade of men dying. That's not gonna. It's not gonna work well with it, because not gonna work well in the neighborhood. Wow, the newspapers. There's no way is that gonna be no way is that gonna be something that any civilian's gonna want to see or hear. They had no idea. Oh, Arrow, have a good night. On my way to a date. Dude! Okay, nice. Woman, right? Good job, Dad! Cool, Arrow. Good luck. Let us know. Let us know how it goes. All right. So, yes. Okay, good. All right, Dad, bring us back a new stepmom. Get us someone else to cross their arms while we're up or on top of our escalator. When we make a wrong turn. Chapter 2. Congratulations, guys! I made it. 4 episodes in, we're on chapter 2. Woohoo! Richthofen. If you know, remember who that is from our introduction, the Red Baron, and not the guy who invented the pizza. Bad joke. I had it in file back for a while. Richthofen, Dobritz, Germany, December 1915. So this is in the middle of the war. He sat straight up right in the front seat, waited. Could hear the pilot behind him fiddling with controls, the cables groaning slightly as the pilot worked and tested. Richthofen watched another man standing out front, his hands on the prop, impatient, annoyed with the pilot's careful appraisal of the plane. Finally, the pilot said, "Now!" The man at the propeller gave one strong pull, the prop jerking into motion, the engine coughing black smoke. Richthofen jumped in his seat, smiled. Finally, the adventure would begin. The pilot revved the engine. The black exhaust and the wind up from the prop hit Richthofen full in the face, and suddenly his leather helmet was swept up and behind his head, jerking at his goggles, blinding him. He tried to control the helmet, the chin strap too loose, fumbled with the small buckle. He pulled the goggles back around his eyes, tried to shout to the pilot, but the roar from the spitting engine was too loud. He blinked the smoke from his eyes, grabbed at his helmet, jerked it back down on his head, tightened the chin strap. He was breathing heavily, the exhaust burning in his throat, choking him, and he could feel the plane bumping along the ground, rolling out towards the takeoff area. Richthofen fought through the misery, tried to see all that was happening around him, but now the scarf around his neck was whipping behind him, unwrapping from his collar, the silk sliding free. He grabbed for it, but the sharp blast of wind stripped it away, the scarf now gone. He called out again, could not hear his own words, remembered the notepad in his pocket, the advice from the instructor. The only way to communicate. He retrieved the stub of pencil, wrote a single word, wait. He reached a hand over his shoulder, expected the pilot to take the paper from his hands, but the paper was ripped away, gone as well. The plane bumped along, and he tried to turn in his seat. Impossible. Stared ahead through the whirl of the prop, pulled again at the chin strap, tightening it further. The pilot revved the engine, the roar growing louder still, the wind pressing Richthofen's head back. Now the plane was rolling faster, the bumps more severe. The excitement was gone, replaced by cold terror, and he felt his flight jacket inflating, his body swelling into a fat sausage, thought, my God, I'm going to explode. He imagined himself catapulted up and away, thrown far, that's funny, this is a funny thought, thrown far behind the plane like his scarf, and he punched at his chest, realized now it was only air forced inside the jacket, his failure to close it completely. He worked his fingers frantically, fastened it tightly at his neck. He gripped the leather trim that lined the edge of the cockpit, held tight with his leather gloves, his mind screaming at him to end this madness. Stop! Enough! His voice was swept away by the prop, and the plane kept rolling. Faster, the jerking motions fewer. One hard bounce, punching him into the small wood seat, then a long, floating feeling. He felt his stomach rising, a wave of queasiness. Tried to breathe, and the plane settled back down. Another bounce, and up again. Suddenly, the jerkiness was gone. The plane cutting through the air in a smooth rush. He stared ahead, his stomach calming. He glanced over the side of the plane, saw the ground falling away. The airfield gone. Trees now. Another open field drifting past. He still held tightly to the sides of the plane, looked out the other side, but the terror was replaced by the sheer wonder. Yes, I am flying. He could not help but laugh. The plane continued to climb, the trees growing smaller, a farmhouse, animals, doll-like, the ground now a patchwork of greens and browns. Richthofen ignored the deafening roar, stared out at the horizon, could see a cluster of odd shapes, realized it was Cologne, the great cathedral rising above the town. He was smiling now, turned as much as he could to the seat, tried to see in every direction. He was growing used to the wind, looked again at the magnificent cathedral, tall spires reaching up to God. Yes, this is what God sees. This is how he moves above us. He saw a flock of birds far below, rising out of an open field, like so many small insects. There was a farmer, a team of mules, the man waving up at him, and Richthofen had not stopped smiling. Thought of returning the greeting, but no, not a good idea. Keep your arms inside the plane. There was a tap on his shoulder now, and he tried to turn, but of course he could not move that far. Realized what the pilot was asking him, and the smile was erased. It flooded over him, the job he was supposed to do, the purpose of the flight. He focused, looked out to one side. Cologne, a road, the farms. He was supposed to navigate, to find a point several miles distant, guide the pilot by hand signals, and then, once the target was reached, guide the pilot back to the aerodrome. He searched the horizon, angry at himself now. You were lost, you fool. The pilot made wide turns, first one way and then the other, trying to help him locate the landmarks. Richthofen was miserable now, shook his head, the only signal he could muster. The plane made one wide, sweeping turn, and after several minutes he could feel them dropping down, his stomach rising again. To one side he could see the familiar aerodrome, a small crowd of pilots, the instructors, all watching him. The plane swung down to the far end of the field, lower still, the bushes and trees a few feet below them, then open grass, and now the pilot cut the motor, the prop jerking to a stop. Richthofen felt a cold shock. Something terribly wrong. Expected the plane to simply fall. Held tightly to the sides, braced for the crash. The plane bounced again and settled onto the grass, slowed, quickly, the seat jarring him. They rolled to a stop, the instructor walking slowly towards the plane. Richthofen feeling a hot burn of embarrassment. So, Lieutenant, did you accomplish your mission? He stared down for a moment and said, I did not, sir. Behind him, the pilot said, He had rather good time of it, though. The instructor stood stiffly, his hands clasped behind him, said, We do not have time for sightseeing, Lieutenant. There are others in the squadron who understand why they are here. Sir, I have no excuses. It was my first time. I have not flown before. Well, Lieutenant, if you intend to fly again, I suggest you pay more attention to your duty. Yes, sir. I will, sir. The instructor began to move away, and Richthofen could see the faces of the others, some of the students laughing quietly. The pilot rose up behind him, climbed out of his seat. Richthofen still sat, stared at the controls in front of him, ran his hands over the edge of the small cockpit, said, Sir. The instructor stopped, turned toward him, and Richthofen said, I'd like to try again, sir. You will have another opportunity, Lieutenant. Sir, how about right now? Oh, what's up, Paula Dukin? Welcome. Welcome. This is fun. All sorts of people here. So, Paul, we are reading, since you're just now joining, we are reading To the Last Man by Jeff Sherratt. It's a novel of World War I, and I don't know how early you got into this, but we are also, to remind you, this chapter is called Richthofen, so now Baron von Richthofen. Next section. Richthofen had finally passed the test, and he had been sent first to the Western Front as an observer, little more than a helpless passenger in the large bombers, assisting the pilots to lay their eggs on targets that varied from troop barracks to factories to bridges. The men he flew with enjoyed their work, celebrated each night with real and imagined tales of the vast destruction of their enemy. But Richthofen chafed at being a passenger. In some of the large bombers, the observers sat behind the pilot, and he had passed the idle time watching as the pilots worked their controls, studied every move, every turn and dip of the plane, corresponding to some action by the man at the controls. It had not taken him long to lose patience with being an observer. By December 1915, he was enrolled at the pilot training school at Dobritz near Berlin. Within weeks, he had mastered those examinations as well, and he would finally sit at the controls of his own bomber while someone else searched for targets. Well, thanks. Appreciate it, Paul. Thanks for leaving a like. Thanks a lot. We'll be here every week at 7 p.m. and I'll gab about something, and we'll do a chapter of the story. So actually, I'm almost done with the page. If you want to stick around for a little longer. Throughout 1915, the Western Front had been locked mostly into a quiet stalemate, but in the east, the Russian campaign against Germany's eastern borders had spread all across the Eastern Front. Despite a catastrophic defeat for the Russians at Tannenberg, which effectively ended their invasion of German territory, Russian forces had begun to launch attacks against what they believed to be more vulnerable Austrians. With the enormous resources of manpower the Russians could bring to their front lines, the German high command was forced to send aid to their Austrian allies and shift German troops away from France. With so much of the fighting now away from the west, Richthofen's squadron had been moved to the Russian front. The Russians had few modern airplanes and fewer pilots to fly them, and the Germans had complete control over the airspace. The Russians offered only one obstacle, a talent for anti-aircraft fire, but their guns were too few, and it was a simple matter for the German pilots to route their missions through the vast areas of empty countryside. Though Richthofen treasured every moment in the air, the routine was numbing as the weeks passed. He began to pursue targets of a different kind, cavalry and infantry. Few Russian soldiers had ever experienced an assault from the air, and Richthofen discovered that entire regiments could be sent into a panic by the machine gun fire from one German plane. This was hardly sport. For Richthofen, the marvelous joy of climbing into the cool air each day was dulled by the utter sameness of the duty he was to perform. The skills had become second nature, finding his way by map or by landmark, another basket of eggs dropped on some target. His importance had no meaning to him. He thought too often now of the it's a weird one. That's a weird word to hyphenize. Eindeckers, the single-winged, single-seat planes whose pilots needed no observer, planes unencumbered by bombs. When the weather kept him on the ground, he passed this time, dreaming of flying alone. No orders, no maps, nothing on the ground to distract him. The passion and the instincts were the same that he had carried into the forests, but there was a difference. In the clouds, your prey was seeking you as well. Two hunters stalking each other. He could not imagine it without feeling a sharp surge of raw excitement. The perfect hunt. All right. And we are done. We are done with that chapter, too. So we finished 2 chapters. So the thing about Jeff Sherrod's novels, some chapters are going to be pretty long. Might be pretty long. Some actually might be just a few pages. So we'll read as much as my voice can muster. So, just to reiterate, we are here every week, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time, and we're just going to be covering a topic, and hopefully, maybe sometimes I'll have nothing to cover. That'd be nice. We'll just be reading. So we'll continue on next week, and anyway, thank you all so much for coming, Arrow and Selena and Sean for Third Relify and Paul Hadouken. Thank you all so much for dropping by. I really appreciate it. You can catch me tomorrow night at for the weekly Rose Gallery also at 7 p.m. Central Time, and I believe out in Vegas they have 5 p.m. Eastern Time. But what do they know? So we're having fun. We'll just have a grand old time over there. So feel free to join us. Anyway, have a good night.